Welcome to the Randy Cross Podcast. This is Season 5, Episode 7. Got a fun one for you, nice interview. And my guest is going to be Mark Shipper, and he's got an idea for a tour during college football season that's going to be for a book that you're not going to believe. I'm looking forward to you hearing about it. The idea is called Fifth Down College Football. He's on Twitter, he's on Instagram, he's all over, fifthdowncollegefootball.com. He's all over. I think you're going to enjoy the heck out of this. All right? So let's get to Mark Shipper. So as promised, I'm joined now by Mark Shipper, and he is with Fifth Down College Football. And if you've ever had sort of a fantasy camp idea in your mind for college football, wouldn't it be fun if I could go to a different campus every week and a different stadium every week and just go to these amazing college rivalries and do a different one every week? Wouldn't that be cool? Well, Mark Shipper gets to do all that cool stuff. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Randy. It's great to be here. I'm excited to be on.
Fantastic. I mean, it's always good to do a fellow Bruin well. It's you've got a fantastic idea here. Maybe explain in your words basically what this whole Fifth Down College Football project is.
Yeah, it is kind of a fantasy camp, like you said, but it's based on the idea of telling the big story of college football. For me, when I look out at college football, I see a game that's inseparable from American history and culture. And the way to tell that story is through its most traditional, longest standing rivalries, its most historic stadiums, and the big stories that have kept it together and kept it such a popular game for, what are we, year 152 now? And it's a story I want to tell because I've loved college football for so many years.
It is nuts. I mean, it seems like, all I know is I grew up in L.A. I was born in New York. I grew up in L.A. I thought I was a college football fan until about 32 years ago. I moved down here to Atlanta, this area, and I didn't know I played a religion. I thought I played a sport. And it is something to see the different parts of this country and how they treat the game and how, kids are basically raised in the game, and everyone's got that seminal moment, that one game, that one play that you can look back on and say, ever since then, I've been a fan. For me, it was the 66 or New Year's of 67, the Rose Bowl game between UCLA and Michigan State. I watched that with my dad. My dad was going nuts. He was a big Bruin fan. And it was from that day on that I even knew what football was. Before that, I was all baseball all the time.
Yeah, I like that your introduction to football was the college game. That was my introduction as well. I have two, I guess, origin stories that I tell, and the reason I have two is because the first one I haven't been able to quite pin down yet. I was born in Iowa City. My dad went to the University of Iowa. My uncle Mark worked in Iowa City for years at a very cool bar that's no longer there, and I can remember being a small child in Kinnick Stadium and my uncle and dad telling me to look for the bumblebees down in the corner because Iowa's black and gold. They look like bumblebees, and I was 5 or 6, maybe younger. So it's a very hazy memory, but one of my first memories of life is in a college football stadium. And then probably my next biggest memory would be the 1991 season, both the Florida State-Miami game wide right, and then the 92 Rose Bowl following that season, Michigan-Washington, when Washington completed their 12-0 season, split a national title with Miami. Those kind of incidents right there when I really became a kind of a college football obsessive for a time.
You think that's common for most football fans, especially college football fans?
Yeah, I do, because I think one of the things that separates college football from the professional game is the professional game is an ice-cold business, and college football is a lot of heart and passion. It's very personal. It comes down from grandfathers to fathers to sons. It's connected to the land we grow up on. Oftentimes, your college is where you grew up. So there's this huge sense of identity with college football, and it's a very powerful thing. So these teams almost become avatars for where you grew up and who you are. So yeah, I do think it's a common thing.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the games you're going to be at, some of the places you're going to go during this tour?
Yeah, I'd love to. You mentioned the South, and I'm from the North. I went to school in the West, but I know what football is in the South, but I have to experience this thing for myself. So I'll be heavily in the Southern region this year to check out the scene. Some of the big games, I'm going to be at Texas, Arkansas, which is an anniversary of the '69 national championship game, which is a big moment in not just college football history, but American history. I'm following that up with Nebraska, Oklahoma, which is another major historical moment, the 71 game of the century. I'm going to Ole Miss at Alabama, which is going to give me a great opportunity to talk about the history of Mississippi, the history of Alabama, their role in college football. Oklahoma, Texas, the Red River rivalry, everything that stands for. Florida, LSU, which is like pure Southern flavor. USC at Notre Dame, major game in the history of the sport, and a huge story and really kind of certain elements of the culture in this country. Florida, Georgia, the cocktail party. Oregon, Washington for the Pacific Northwest. Florida State, Miami. And Harvard Yale is kind of one that stands out to me because college football started out in the Northeast in 1869, and Harvard and Yale were a major reason why this country embraced college football like it did. So I'm actually really looking forward to going out to the Yale Bowl and watching Harvard Yale and seeing what the game is there now compared to what it was in the early days. So those are kind of some of the highlights. And actually I left out Ohio State, Michigan, which is used to be a big game, and hopefully they can get that back.
So you've got a solid, about 4 months of game after game after game. How has the reception been? I know you've gotten a hold of some of these communications departments, these PR departments or whatnot, for these schools. How has your idea been sort of received?
The people I've gotten in touch with that have been really excited about it. It makes sense to people. Anyone who's around college football seems to understand what I'm talking about when I say the connection to history and culture is just so powerful, and the story I'm trying to tell. So it's been good. I have more contacts I need to make, but at every stop I get to, I kind of want to visit with each group that has a stake in the game, from athletic administration to fans, and to sort of the local business and industry that's supported by college football in the fall. So this is kind of I want it to be a complete look at the game as not just a sport and sort of agent of culture, but also a big business and big television business, and what it all means in these communities, because it's no longer just this beautiful amateur game that we love. It's big business.
How did you ever come up with this?
I think it was, honestly, I think I've been meant to write this book since I was 9 years old and really, really loved college football because, well, I do have my teams. I can think back to my experience with college football, and I always had multiple teams in every region who I followed and was fascinated by. And I love the bowl season and the whole sort of pageantry of the year, from the early games in September to the late games in November, the way the weather changes, the way the stakes rise, the different atmospheres you get at these ballparks. So I think it actually just came to me. And when COVID kind of destroyed 2020, it just became time to do something big and go for it. And this idea came to mind, and I just kind of, the die has been cast, as they say.
So have you set your whole schedule, or are you still sort of open to see how things go for this year? Do you have a couple spots where it could be an either or at this time?
It's actually, today it was just basically finalized. I'm going to have one off week in September where I could potentially add something if I want, but I think I'm going to want that week off. But it's, the schedule is pretty much set.
Where are you going to be on 9/11?
9/11 is going to be a really interesting game. It's Texas at Arkansas.
Okay.
So that's for those who might not know some history on that game. There's a book to read called Horns, Hogs, and Nixon Coming, about the 1969 national championship.
That's the James Street team, right?
The James Street team, you got it, with the big play late in the fourth quarter, fourth down, long bomb down the sideline. And it's a perfect encapsulation of what I mean with college football, and that it was so much more than a game. President Nixon was famously at that game courting the Southern vote. He declared the winner of that game would be national champion. 10-0 Texas, 10-0 Arkansas. Nixon had a plaque made up and said the winner will be national championship as far as President Nixon is concerned. There was a 10-0 Penn State team up in the Northeast who was going to go down to the Orange Bowl and complete an undefeated season. And Nixon essentially destroyed their opportunity at a national championship beforehand. And then in addition to that, it's the last all-white national championship game we ever had in this country. So it was two all-white rosters, and there was some tension around that. And it's amazing to look at how different it is from 1969 to how it is in 2021. And I'm going to kind of contrast the different places we were as a country. So you add 9/11 to that mix, and now you're talking about a major sort of Saturday in America in the fall.
Yeah, it is crazy when you look at every rivalry out there, especially the major rivalry. Are you going to be in LA for SC UCLA, or is that slated for something else?
Yeah, I'm not going to be there for USC, UCLA, but I've been to multiple of those games. I went to UCLA and I lived in Los Angeles, so I've seen USC, UCLA in Los Angeles. I know what it's all about. I actually had two really great experiences with that game. In 2005, highly ranked USC and UCLA met in the Coliseum, and USC just smoked the Bruins. I think it was 66-19.
Yeah, I remember.
It was one of. You remember that one? Yeah, that was a tough day at the ballpark. But the very next year, USC came in with a chance to play again for the BCS title, and the Bruins at the Rose Bowl upset them 13-9. So I got like the complete experience of what that rivalry means to those schools. So I'm actually, for UCLA, I'll be watching LSU at the Rose Bowl, which is an interesting intersectional game. Mm-hmm. And then for USC, I'll be up in South Bend for the Notre Dame game.
That's one thing I do miss are the old Thanksgiving Day slates. Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Nebraska, UCLA, USC. It was like, that's where I think those were the days when appointment TV sort of became a term, only because you knew who was playing who and you knew when it was just basically by the spot on the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the worst ones we lost, and at this time it kind of inaugurated a period where I was a little down on college football, which is when Texas A&M left the Big 12 for the SEC, and we lost Texas A&M on Thanksgiving Day. That was, to me, one of the most important rivalries in college football, and to see it broken up for not purely television-related reasons, but strongly television-related reasons.
No, come on, it was about money.
It was about money. That was absolutely at bottom of everything.
So's their reunion, by the way.
Indeed it is. So it's like, maybe money is a bad thing. Maybe sometimes it's a good thing. We're getting back together because of money. So it's a complicated issue. I'm looking at that in the book. That's part of this story.
Are you contemplating at all just sort of going back through the bowl season, the playoff games, anything else like that for the full year effect, or?
Yeah. With the changes coming in the playoff, I'm worried we're going to lose the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, which to me is New Year's Day. The college bowl games anchored by the Rose Bowl with that 4 p.m. kickoff and the sunset and all the pageantry and tradition. So I've been to one Rose Bowl. I may go back this year just to get it one of the final times if it does change. But I am planning whether I do that or not, I'm planning to end at the national championship in Indianapolis just to put the cap on the season and watch how it all ends and sort of render judgment. Is this college football in the 21st century what we want, or are we kind of heading in a dangerous direction for the sport?
So what's the title of this book going to be?
That's to be determined. I got a big page of potential titles, and it's all going to depend on the feeling I want to give people when they look at the cover. And I think that's going to come after I have this season of experiences and decide sort of what direction I think it's going. This is an investigatory trip as much as anything.
It's fantastic. Hey, Mark, I really appreciate you joining me. This is an unbelievable project. I'd like to do whatever I can to help. If you need any contacts through this whole process, I know a certain TV network that probably be interested in talking to you and seeing what you're going to be doing, especially when you're down in the SEC country. But thanks for joining us.
Randy, I couldn't appreciate it anymore. It was great to talk with you. And I'm going to take you up on that offer. So check your email, check your text messages.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy. Take care of yourself.
Bye now. Now, let's be honest. That was fun. Mark's got a great idea. I'm going to do as much as I can to help the guy out. I think this is one of those ideas that you just got to help along, because it's about growing the game and growing the history of the game, more importantly. Just fantastic stuff. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. I want to remind you how you found us. Best place is always to go to randycross.com, because we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're everywhere as far as that goes in the social media world. But always go there. But when you go to YouTube, be sure to subscribe. Give us a little like and the thumbs up, but also subscribe. All right? Well, time now for us to go away. And when we go away, we do it on a happy trails.